Okay. Okay, so welcome everyone to our today's webinar. Sorry, just one second. Yeah. My name is Mike Williams. I work for the Department of Foreign Affairs, and I'm currently based in Ireland's permanent representation to the EU in Brussels. I'm delighted to welcome you to the 17th in our series of EU careers webinars. Our previous webinars have discussed various EU career opportunities, and they're all available to watch back on the Department of Foreign Affairs YouTube page. Today, we're going to be discussing a competition that was relaunched on the 28th of May by the European Personnel Selection Office, or EPSO. And it's a competition focused on the selection of administrators in the field of crisis management, migration, and internal security. The deadline to apply is next week, 9th of July. And with today's webinar is really focused on providing more information on the types of roles that you could expect to be involved in if you were successful in the competition, but then also to lay out the specifics of this competition and how it works and how to apply and prepare yourself for each stage. The Department of Foreign Affairs provides support to Irish citizens applying for these competitions at every stage of the process. So if you are looking to access practice material for computer-based tests or for case studies or written tests, please do contact us at eujobs@dfa.ie. That's eujobs@dfa.ie. And that's really, please do. We are happy to hear from Irish candidates for these competitions. It's very important for us that you get the support and the preparation you need for these competitions. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our speakers today. We have joining us from DG Home, we have Maurice Molt, so DG Home in the European Commission. Julia Stewart-David is joining us from DG ECHO in the European Commission. And Koen Hendricks is joining us from the European Personnel Selection Office. So Koen will give us an overview of the specifics of this competition. Thanks again to our speakers for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and input on this. And I'd also like to thank, of course, our audience for joining us today online. You will have a chance to ask your own questions at the end of the speakers' presentations, and you can do that through the webpage Slido, that's sli.do, using the code EUJobs, so hashtag EUJobs, to access the system. You don't have to register, you can just go to the website and enter that code, and then you'll be able to input your question that we will be able to ask to the panelists today. So without further ado, I'll hand over first to Maurice, just to give us a sense of his own background and work in the Commission. So yeah, thank you, Maurice.
Sure, thanks, Mike. Good morning, everybody. My name is Maurice Molt. I'm a policy officer at DG Home. I focus on cooperation with border management authorities of non-EU countries. So I guess to start with how I got here, I studied international relations. I became a lawyer. I worked in corporate law for a bit. I had a quarter-life crisis. I went to go work for international organizations. I did human rights stuff in the Balkans. And then I went off to Ukraine. I did some conflict monitoring there. Ended up in Kiev doing political analysis and reporting, and that's when I learned about the EPSO. I passed the generalist EPSO on my second attempt in 2019, and I got hired almost immediately to work as an intelligence analyst at the European Anti-Fraud Office. And then about 3 years ago, I switched to DG Home. To give a bit of an overview of DG Home, I have the organogram in front of me because it's such a broad DG. We have 3 policy directorates. The first one is Schengen, Borders and Visa. The second is Migration Asylum. And the third is Internal Security. So internal security covers law enforcement cooperation, counterterrorism, radicalization, organized crime, drugs, trafficking. The migration, and I don't deal with any of that really, so I unfortunately can't speak very much to any of those aspects. Migration and asylum deals with returns, readmission, integration, asylum, migration management. And then my directorate deals with Schengen policy, external border policy, and visa policy. And then DG Home is also the mother DG of 6 agencies: Frontex, EU-LISA, the EU Asylum Agency, Europol, CEPOL, and the EU Drugs Agency. So those are all things for this EPSO that you should be aware of. My unit, so each one of those agencies then has a unit within DG Home that deals with them directly. So my unit deals with Frontex, which is the EU agency responsible for border management. And my little world is the negotiation of agreements that allows Frontex to deploy European border guards in non-EU countries. So as you can imagine, I mean, there's a number of legal hurdles that are involved in putting for EU staff in non-EU countries. So I use my legal background there, and given that our main focus, I think, with that kind of work, border management work, is neighboring third countries. It's the Balkans, and it's to some extent the Eastern Partnership countries. I'm able to use my background a little bit, and I think for me that's the beauty of the commission, that no matter what your background is, what your experiences are, you'll always find some job that fits very, very well. The real challenge is just passing the EPSO. Once you pass the EPSO, you'll find something. I think with regard to the EPSO, I mean, we have the expert here, but I'll give you the advice based on my various attempts. For the reasoning skills test, that's the verbal reasoning, the abstract reasoning, the reading test, the mathematical reasoning test. Sorry. Really just invest as much time and as much money as you can into practice and prep materials. Take up the perm reps offer. I remember before I had my second generalist EPSO, I came to Brussels just for the practice session, which I found really useful. There are plenty of organizations that provide prep materials. So take the money and the time that you can and put it in there. The questions aren't hard. It's the time pressure that makes it difficult, and the more you practice, the easier the time pressure gets. The field-related questions, based on colleagues who took it the first iteration of this exam, they're super specific. I think from what I heard last time, there was a question asking the percentage of returnees or of asylum denial claims of returnees of one specific country that were actually sent back to their country of origin in one specific year. Even my colleagues in the asylum unit wouldn't know that top of their head, I would wager. And you can't memorize that type of information at that level for every country, for every year, to get one question right out of 20. So I think the return on investment isn't really there to really memorize every possible statistics related to, and you heard me mention all the units that we have. So go on DG Home's website, read the priorities, read the focus areas, read about the agencies and know what the agencies do, what their mandates are. But I think you have to accept as well that with that part of the EPSO, luck is probably also plays a big role. I wouldn't invest maybe too much time or effort into memorizing the facts, but really focus on being able to do well in the first part, so you get through that first hurdle, because there really practice can make it go much easier. And I think with that, my 5 minutes are up, so I will hand it back to you, Mike, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Mars. And that's really interesting. I mean, both to understand how you kind of ended up in the commission yourself, and the kind of, even within the commission, the journey you've gone in terms of different policy areas that you've covered. And then also to that insight in terms of the practice and the type of practice that people can do for these competitions, and the importance of practicing as much as you can for the bits that, where there is a high reward in terms of the practice. So thank you very much for that. I'm sure there will be questions at the end, so we'll go on now to Julia to give us her own background. And Julia is currently in DG ECHO in the Commission. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you very much. So let me add and let me complement. So Julia Stewart-David, as you mentioned, my current role is as an advisor, strategic advisor on the climate and resilience issues to the department known as ECHO, which is European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid. And if you like, that is where crisis management, particularly crisis response, is mainly done in the Commission, although we can talk to that in the questions. We've had a lot of crises over the last decade, and there are these crisis management functions all over the institutions. So for myself, it's my 25th year, my silver jubilee in the Commission this year. And of that 25 years, I've spent 17 of them, I worked out, in various crisis management related roles, mainly in ECHO, both on humanitarian aid and on something which we call civil protection, so disaster management. ECHO has a global remit and an in-Europe disaster remit, but you might wonder where I got the taste for crisis management. And I got the taste for crisis management actually in my very first job before I joined the EU institutions, where I worked for a department of the UK government back in 1996 on the 20th of March, when there was an announcement which provided a link between a disease known as BSE, mad cow disease, and deaths in human beings. And this caused a mega crisis. And overnight, I was brought to reinforce a team that was dealing with this particular crisis. So I'm giving the illustration because crisis comes in many forms, and public health and animal health being some of them that we unfortunately all know too well. I've spent most of my time on the policy side and legislative negotiations. I've spent a lot of time working in the institutions, coordinating with Parliament and the member states, and I do a lot of advocacy and representation. And latterly, as you might understand, I have managed a lot of staff and a lot of staff who've been going through in various ways the stages of recruitment. So probably well over 100 people by now. So I'm going to come to very briefly to what I think the mindset and the skills might be. So I agree with Maurice. At this stage, your job is to make sure you get through this recruitment. But what we look for are good communicators, adaptable people who are good with uncertainty and change. Crisis management is not a job for people who like a regular structure by its very nature. We look for people who are good at finding solutions. And I would invite you to think about your own personal resilience. You've all lived through the COVID pandemic. We were living like you were, as citizens through the COVID pandemic, and working on emergency legislation, on getting equipment around Europe and all of the consequences of that. This takes a lot of resilience. So within that, we have a lot of specific expertise. You will find your place, as Maurice said, for sure. So we work a lot with firemen, firefighters, apologies. We work with people who've got environmental risk backgrounds. We work with mappers. We work with people who know how to deal with budgets. All of this requires basic operational policy and administrative work. So you will certainly find a place for your skills in this domain. It's an exciting domain in the sense that there's never a dull day, never a quiet day. Your work is every day in the news, every day. And indeed, we're all very proud to work in DG ECHO, where we spend, in our different ways, our time sending aid or coordinating aid mainly through partners in response to disasters worldwide in Europe, preventing and preparing for disasters, and providing the analytical services behind that give our early warning. One very specific area which you will have seen in the competition is that we have a duty system, an emergency response coordination centre, 24/7, and that is obviously a little bit atypical in the lives of the fonctionnaires of the Commission, but that's the kind of opportunities we have, and I would really wish you all great luck in getting through this. I think the advice from Maurice was very sound on passing the concours. There's a lot of information out there available, and in particular for us, as well as the website, you will find a civil protection knowledge network. Please, again, don't spend all your hours and hours and hours going on to every last document because that's unlikely to give you the answer to one or other question. But please be aware of all the big main developments over the years, and you will find all of that information readily accessible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. And again, it's every time, anytime I'm speaking to people in the Commission, I'm always struck by the diversity of the opportunities and roles, even within a DG, that you might have a sense of what the DG does, but really once you speak to someone who's working there, you realize there's a lot more to it than just the headline name and opportunities. But look, I think if we'll just now moving on to the specifics of the competition, I'll hand over to Koen just to give us from EPSO, just to give us really the details of this particular competition and the different stages involved. Thanks.
Yeah, very well. Thanks a lot, Mike. And indeed, welcome to all. My name is Koen Hendricks. I manage the external communication in EPSO. So what we do is really promote and explain the different career opportunities that we offer. And this one is indeed about the competition just mentioned by Mike and explained by Maurice and Julia. And it's very nice indeed to hear and to see the people behind these policies and domains and fields. I'm going to walk you now through the nitty-gritty of the procedure as such. All right, so I will share my screen and show you a number of slides, which actually are already available on the landing page of this competition. You'll find a tutorial there, actually with my face in a little circle there, explaining these different steps of the competition. So let's go there. I will share this presentation right now, and you should be seeing it right now. So as Mike already mentioned, it's a reopened competition. So we initially published this competition in 2023. We had to pause it for a couple of reasons, and we have now reopened it, meaning you can apply again, basically. All right. The reopening comes with two novelties, and I will mention them later on again. First of all, we have shifted to a full 24 language regime. I'll explain in a minute what exactly this means. And then in the testing day, during the testing day, one of the tests used to be a case study, and this has now been replaced by a written test. Again, I will explain the difference in a minute. Important for those people who had already applied last year, these people also must submit their application again. Okay, so they have to visit their current application and validate it again by the 9th of July. Right now, since time has passed, these people have the opportunity to add new information, newly required professional experience, for instance, can be added into their application to make it count as well. All right. For all the others, for the newcomers, so to say, the new applicants, nothing changes for them. It's just a competition as any other. So you will find also on the website this small infographic in a way, which shows you the 5 steps to take to become a successful candidate. And in the next few minutes, I will walk you through these 5 steps in detail. As you know, there are 2 different fields, crisis management and then migration and internal security. You have to choose one field, and you can only choose one field of this competition if you are a candidate. Okay, so you can't take part in both fields. Quite nice numbers of, sorry for this, it's jumping a bit. You see the number of successful candidates sought for there, quite high, so take your chance, I would say. When it comes to eligibility criteria, it's an AD7 level or grade competition. AD stands for administrator, meaning it's a university level competition. And 7 refers to the experience that we're asking for. So 87 means you either need at least a 4-year university degree, a master if you like, plus 6 years of professional experience in the field, or a bachelor degree, which is a 3-year degree, plus 7 years of relevant professional experience. Now, when you see relevant experience, please do read the notice of competition very carefully, because there you will find a list of both areas and activities to which your experience must match. So you will find 3 pages, really 3 pages long, of different areas which we accept to this competition, and also a number of activities that we accept. So have a look there and see if you qualify. Your degree as such, master or bachelor, can be in any field. All right, any degree is welcome to apply, but of course you need the experience relevant to the field of your choice. When it comes to the language criterion, you need to master 2 official EU languages, and this is a novelty. Usually for this, or in previous competitions, for the second language, there was mostly a restricted choice. Sometimes 1 language, English mostly. Sometimes you had the choice between 2 or 3 or 4 languages. But for this competition and onwards from now on, for both your test languages, you can choose between any of the 24. One of these languages you should master at level C1 and one at level B2. Now, this is indicative. We do not ask you to send us proof. Sorry for this again. We do not ask you to send proof of your language levels. So C1 and B2 is indicative. If you choose your languages and you are successful in taking your tests in that language, for us, this is enough proof that you master the language at the level required. Okay. So then when it comes to the selection procedure, as usual, we have 3 stages in a way. There's an application stage, a testing stage, and a result stage. And you see already in the testing stage here that the 3rd test, the case study, has been replaced by a written test. I'll come to that in a minute. You will sit these 3 tests in one single day, and you do not have to travel to a test center, not to Brussels, not to anywhere else. So basically, you can take these tests from your home computer at your ease at home, really, okay? You will be given a link and then you can connect and sit the tests. So the 3 stages. First, the application stage, you need an EPSO account. You can easily create one, even today on the website, easily done. If you have already one, do not create a second one. You can only have one EPSO account to apply for all opportunities that we offer. You can apply in any of the 24 official languages. You should do so by the 9th of July, as you know. And then we will also invite you to upload your supporting documents, so basically your degrees and your proofs of professional experience by the 4th of September. Once you've done that, you all will be invited to the tests. Everybody who applies gets invited, right? So first, you will sit a reasoning skills test. As already briefly explained by Maurice, we test your verbal, numerical, and abstract reasoning skills. And as you can see here, you take these tests in your first language of choice, really your language of choice. It does not have to be your mother tongue. You tell us which is your language 1 and which is your language 2, all right? Any of the languages. So verbal reasoning, as you can see, 20 questions, 35 minutes. It's a pass-fail score. So as soon as you reach at least 10 out of 20, you're still in the running, all right? You must reach at least 10 out of 20. Whether you get 11 or 12 or more, doesn't matter. 10 out of 20 is enough. And then as you can see, there is a combined pass score of 10 out of 20 for both numerical and abstract reasoning combined, all right? Now, you see the link here below, and I will send it also to Mike, and he can then send it around to you guys. On the website, you will find sample tests, sample questions in a quiz type of format, so easily accessible. Really have a look there and get familiar with the level of difficulty of these questions. And as Maurice already said, the time factor is important, right? So train this, train on your speed to reply to these questions, to answer these, because that will make a difference in getting there or not, all right? Then the second test is a field-related test where we assess your knowledge in the field of your choice of this competition. You sit this test in the second language of your choice, and this time your score will be ranked. This is important. So here you have to score as highly as possible. You know, the pass score of 15 out of 30 will surely not be enough to be ranked among the best scoring candidates, which gives access to the list of successful candidates in the end, of course. So this is something you can really prepare by, as also said by Maurice already, really reading a lot on the on the website of, or the different websites involved, on the different websites of the agencies involved, and get familiar with the policy and the work done by these different bodies. The third test and last test is indeed this written test, again in second language, again on pass-fail basis, so you need to score 5 out of 10 minimum. And with this test, we only assess your written communication skills, all right? So we do not test knowledge in the field anymore. Now, however, the subject you have to write about is a subject related to the field of your choice. And upfront, we will send you documentation on that field to prepare yourself for this test, okay? So this is really an open text type of test. You will get a subject, which you will then need to develop in open text, developing the subject basically. So it's like an essay type of test really, all right? Again, how to prepare for this, read a lot on the Europa website, see how we communicate, how we write, how we draft our reports, which language we use, how we write web pages, and you get, by reading a lot, you get to see what the skills are that we're looking for to make you stand out in this test. So the ones who pass the first test, the reasoning skills, and the third test, the written test, and who are the highest ranked on the second test, the knowledge in the field, those are the people who are listed on the list of successful candidates, or so-called reserve list, all right? And this is the basis for recruitment. So we, EPSO, we hand over these lists to the recruiting bodies, institutions and agencies. And if they have vacancies, they will scan the list of people on this list. And based on CV, there's no real ranking on this list, everybody's equal. But based on CV, of course, they try to match the successful candidates with the job at stake. And they will invite these people to a job interview, see who matches the job best, and the best match will be offered the job. The others will stay on the list and they will get opportunities later on to get employed again. The objective of the recruiters is to offer everybody a job in the year after publishing this reserve list. Some get a job offer like the next week and over the next couple of weeks. Some may have to wait a bit longer before being offered a job. But there again, with the help of the Perm Rep, of the Irish Perm Rep, you can try and get in touch with them, and they will surely help you to try and find a job somewhere quicker than someone else on the same list. So, as said up front, please do read the notice of competition very carefully. Some parts may be boring to read, but it holds really a lot of information that answers probably many of your questions about this whole procedure. On our website, you can also always reach out to us by filling out the contact form, the web form on the website there, and then we get back to you with an answer very quickly. I would also suggest you follow EU Careers on our social media channels. We are all over to stay updated on this competition and next opportunities that we offer. Okay, I'll stop sharing for now, and then we will be able to take your questions, I guess, as from now.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Koen. That's a very comprehensive overview of the competition process. So hopefully that may have answered some of these questions already, actually. But I think just one of the questions we received on Slido is around the languages for the tests. Is there any thing that says you have to use your mother tongue for a certain, for one part, or is there any advice around that, or is it really up to the candidates?
So that's a good question. And indeed, as I said, so since now, and for this competition as well, there's this 24 language regime. So all languages are equal in this testing procedure. So it's really up to you to choose which language you want to use for your reasoning skills and which language you want to use for the two other tests. So pick any. We don't favorize mother tongue, or we don't even use the word mother tongue for us. I mean, it's language 1 and language 2. You choose. Now, luckily, Irish, probably most of you, if not all of you, will have English as one of both languages, which comes in handy because in the end, when it comes to recruitment, it is fair to say that English is one of the main languages used within the EU institutions, within the working environment. So it makes sense to have English as one of them. Other people, if I would take an example, like say someone who speaks Czech and Slovak, all right? These persons are perfectly fit to take part in the competition with these two languages. But in the end, to be recruited, just having Slovak and Czech will surely not be enough to find a job. This is not the issue with you guys who speak English. But then again, you need a second language, if not Irish, any other, to sit your test in.
Perfect. Thank you, Koen. And we have some more.
Can I jump in there real quick as well, Mike? Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, just to complement what Koen just said, if we talk about, language 1, language 2, maybe your stronger language and your weaker language, because the third test, the written test, is where you're actually writing, that should be done in the language that you're strongest in. So I think for most of us, that would be English, whereas, my other language is German, so I do the multiple choice test in German because I really just have to read in German and then find the right answer and then click the number. I don't have to write anything. So for me, I think it always works to think about, which language am I strongest in writing and communicating, and I leave that for the harder tests. And then just for the multiple choice, use the language you learned in school, whatever that may be, if that's helpful.
Great, thanks, Morris. That, I mean, I mean, that's definitely, I mean, anyone we're speaking to about these competitions and anyone we're advising on them, it's generally I suppose the essence is to be tactical about your language choices in terms of in terms of each competition, and do what works best for you for the competition is what we generally hear from people. Koen, we have another couple of questions just around the written test, and so one person is looking to understand a bit more about the skills that are tested in the written test. And then another person has asked if there could be more details about the type of document that you would actually be producing in the written test, and if you have any more information.
Yeah, so I am currently, and my mouse is blocking, sorry for that. I wanted to show you, if I can go there. I wanted to show you what we assess in the written communication, but my mouse is now blocking. Where am I? Sorry for this, guys. I'm going to escape here just a minute. I will be back with you in a sec, and then show you the page where you find what we're looking for. And it's a bit slow. So, sorry, and I should share my screen, of course. If not, you can't see it. So we go here. So here we explain, if you can see the screen, the anchors for the written communication skills. The anchors are really the topics that the markers, the selection board members, if you like, use to assess your written test. And these are the 6 anchors mentioned here, you see? So the candidates would be able to structure communication, to write concisely, to present subject matter in an understandable way, to adapt the writing to match the audience, and to use information provided to deal with the assignment. You see, so it's really clearly explained here. So I will send you this link once more. It's already also in the tutorial. You see, it's the link here, but I'll send this around so you have access to it directly then. All right, I hope this helps. And then, yeah, the second question that was asked, when do we, or what kind of information do we get? You don't get the subject as such for this written test, but you will get information kind of covering the subject. All right, we won't give you the question up front as such, but yeah, information regarding the topic that you will have to deal with during the assignment.
That's great. Thank you very much, Koen. Then 2 more practical questions, I suppose. One is around when the examination period is likely to take place. I'm not sure if you can give a concrete answer on that. And then the second one is around the field-related tests, is to understand whether that is a multiple choice question test as well.
So first question, when? So the application period ends on the 9th of July. You can go on holidays, because that's probably why you're asking. There won't be any testings in July and August. So we start testing as of September. Very probably first we do the testing of another competition still in the running, and then only this one. So I don't have an exact date yet, but somewhere after the summer we start these tests. Use the summer maybe at your poolside to test your reading skills. The second test was, the second question was, is the second test, so the field-related test, in a multiple choice format? Yes, it is. I can show you this again maybe quickly. If we go back to the PowerPoint. So you see field-related test, 30 questions, and these are not mentioned here. They are multiple choice questions to answer in 40 minutes. All right, so it's multiple choice. And it says here basically multiple choice questions. All right.
That's perfect. Thank you. And just sorry, I'm just trying to look through here to make sure. I'm not sure, Koen, if you can answer this, but there's a question here around will the scenario used be similar to those used in the previous competition that was launched in 2023, or
so in the previous competition, the third test was a case study. That was different, and that's the big. So the 2 main differences are 24 language regime, probably not much of a difference for most of the candidates, but the third test, the case study, has been replaced by a written test. So the difference is the case study There you had to answer a number, you had a case to, you know, to read and to go through. And then you had a number of questions to answer regarding this case. Now it's really an open essay type of question, text you have to write on a given subject. So no questions asked. You get a subject and you have to develop it. So that's really the main difference.
Perfect.
All the rest is the same.
Great. Sorry, there's a question I think more directed to ourselves actually here in terms of the work we're doing for Irish candidates and for Irish candidates to these competitions. I mean, just there's a lot of support available to Irish candidates. I should just say this in terms of interview training, in terms of computer-based test practice material in Irish language as well. If you're trying to do the reasoning tests through Irish, we have that. And please do contact us at eujobs@dfa.ie. We also, there's a government strategy behind this essentially, and which is why people like me exist in this role, talking about these and doing these webinars. And there's a government strategy covering a lot of different elements of what we're doing to try to support Irish candidates and try to promote EU careers. But obviously happy to have any questions directly at eujobs@dfa.ie. Sorry, Koen, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I can make a compliment to this. So if you want to easily get in touch with the Perm Rep, of course, you can find them directly. Now, with each application form, so if you apply for this competition, very quickly, when you start applying, you will find a tick box saying something like, I give consent to EPSO sharing my data with my government authority, something like this. If you tick this box, we can indeed send your data to the Perm Rep, and they can then contact you and offer you all the assistance. And they do so indeed. The Irish are very strong in this. So I really recommend you tick this box to be able to be followed up during the whole competition.
That's great. Thank you, Koen. Yeah, very good point about the box. Julia, there's actually a question here around, I think, someone who's maybe still at an earlier stage of their career around what type of professional experience they're a student currently, and what type of professional experience you would recommend kind of for them to look to in the next few years if they're looking to be involved in crisis management or to do a test for this sort of competition in the future.
Thanks a lot for the question. It's a fabulous question. Look, it's an area where the range of experience and skill sets that you can apply to dealing with disasters crisis is really broad, really broad. Let me give you some examples. You might be studying something like engineering. We work with structural engineers on earthquakes. We work with logisticians, people who understand supply chain, but then we also work with people who understand how to procure. So we also work with people who understand how to manage projects. And then the classic, I would say, profiles, which probably you talk about in the less specialist competitions, like ability to analyze, to make arguments, so the policy skills. The more generalist background, which is the one that I have. So really nothing, I would say, is excluded. And to make a really great team in crisis management, you do need this mix of skills. So not a direct answer, but don't necessarily think there are specialist degrees, there are masters in disaster management, but really almost anything that people are studying and acquiring around risk or around responding to emergencies in different ways would be very useful in the future. And often that's in country, and sometimes it's in other parts of the world. I hope that helps.
That's great. Thank you, Julia. I'm afraid the rest of the questions currently are probably more back to Koen's side again. Koen, just on the field-related test, there's a question here around what is assessed in that test and how candidates can prepare for it. I think Julia and Maris have both touched a little bit on how to prepare for these tests, but if you have any anything to add on that.
Yeah. So indeed, we EPSO, we do not provide test material or preparation material to prepare for these kind of field-related tests. That would be impossible for us to start, gathering information about all the different fields that we offer competitions for. So the best way to go about is indeed read a lot about the different topics on the Europa website, right? As Maurice already said, how he prepared as well, read through all the material that there is available. There is a lot indeed. There is a lot, you can say. We test sometimes the questions sometimes are very nitty-gritty indeed. Sometimes more general, can be a bit of everything. We don't have, as I say, sample tests or sample questions in the field available. But again, if you master the topic, if you have experience in the field, this should give you the background needed of the kind of skills and people that we are looking for.
That's great. Thanks, Koen. And we have a couple of questions here around, I think essentially candidates are wondering, can they change their language choices after they've submitted their application? Is that option available?
So good question, and the answer is no. Once you have validated your application, once you have given us the two languages, you can no longer change. So this is it. You can change again for another competition, of course, but once you have validated for one specific competition, your language choice, that's final.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if that's good news for some people on the call, but there we are. Koen, there's a couple of questions around the assessment.
Well, I mean, if I can say so, they can still change it until the 9th if they haven't validated yet. Okay.
Okay.
If they have validated, they can't change anymore. Just to be clear. Sorry for that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And there's a couple of questions around I think for the written test, around how it's assessed, I think there's a question there around whether there's any AI screening software involved, or whether it's kind of, and is there particular keywords that they need to think about, or how these tests are assessed from that point.
So the tests are really marked by live human markers, all right? So real people. I've shown you the anchors already, the anchors that we use to assess these tests. Keywords as such, I mean, you will see the subject, you will get the documentation up front, so you know what the topic is, you know up front what the line and the domain that we're looking into. So, I mean, to each domain, to each field, indeed, come keywords, come certain theories and structures behind, so use them, of course. But as said, there's no AI behind that will filter down on keywords or so. So it's really about how you communicate. Of course, certain terminology will be obvious in certain domains. So make sure you use them. But again, have a look at the 6 anchors that the assessors use to mark these tests, and make sure you work your communication towards these 6.
Perfect. Thank you, Koen. And we have another question just on the written test, is around just on the subject of the written test. Is this definitely around the specific policy area, or could it be a more general EU Commission topic?
No, for this competition, it will be related to the field of your choice of this competition. So either migration or internal security.
And then a further question, obviously this competition is very specialized, and one of the people on the call is wondering around whether there may be a more generalist competition planned anytime in the near future. I think that's a common question to EPSO.
Yeah, so indeed. So you are referring to the generalist entry-level AD5 competition. That's how we call it. So AD5 is the entry level for a university grade colleague. And we plan to organize or to publish our next AD5 competition, maybe still at the end of this year. So keep an eye on the EPSO website or on our EU Careers social media channels. And as soon as we have a date, we will publish it. All right, so keep an eye out there. It won't be soon, more towards the end of the year or maybe beginning of next. And that competition is indeed open to everybody with at least a university bachelor degree, and there is no professional experience required. So anyone fresh out of high school in a way, or university at least, can take part in this competition. It will attract many candidates, right? So you will not be the only one. Many thousands of candidates, really. So there again, it makes sense to prepare very well for the reasoning skills tests. The second test there, so the test in the field, well, we cannot assess knowledge in the field because there is no field. So there indeed, the second test will be on EU knowledge. You will assess your knowledge of the EU institutions, the roles of the different institutions, their collaboration, the Commission priorities, all these things. And for this test, and this is contrary to what we to the specialist competitions where we do not provide any test material up front. For this second test for the 85 generalist competition, we will provide you with a link towards a big document from which we draw the questions. So you will have the study material at hand. It will be a very big document, 500 to 600 pages. But again, it's all about EU matter, okay? A lot of it is available already on the Europa website, but you will have the link when we publish the competition. Okay, and then the third test, the written test, will again be the same kind of essay type of test, but then on a general EU topic.
Thanks very much, Koonan. And we have a question there around whether there's quotas for underrepresented Irish candidates, or will it only be the top candidates selected? I think, I mean, from you can correct me if I'm wrong, Koen, but from the EPSO side, it's really just whoever comes out top in the tests. On the Commission side, there are efforts, I know, to bring in to encourage DGs to interview candidates from underrepresented member states, and Ireland would fall into that category in these grades. But quotas are I don't think exist anywhere in the EU system as far as I'm aware. Yeah, there's a guiding race in terms of how many nationals from each membership state should ideally be working in the Commission, but there's no quotas at the moment, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, exactly. So we strive to geographical balance, to have the EU member states well represented, equally represented in EU staff. It's currently not the case. Indeed, we have underrepresented countries and well or even overrepresented countries. All candidates are equal, as you just said, so the best one wins in the end. So the list of successful candidates is very, very transparent and neutral, right? Then indeed, when it comes to recruitment, and there probably Julia will want to say a word, there indeed we try to work on this geographical balance by trying to recruit more people from the underrepresented countries over someone from an overrepresented countries, if the skills and the competencies match, of course. Julia?
Yes, I'd like to come in both, I think, with some encouragement for those who are listening. I realize at this stage you have to really focus on getting through this competition. But when you get on to the reserve list, as hopefully some of you will, there's 2 points I'd like to make, picking up on earlier things. For a specialist competition, you are likely to get recruited quickly when there are available points. So if that matters to you, and you've got the right eligibility, with the work involved in a specialist competition means that we've identified needs and gaps in that area, and therefore you are likely to get interesting posts in the area that you've got expertise in. So that's number one for the specialists. For those who are listening with more an eye to the general entry, I come back to the delicate question of language. You hear I'm an English mother tongue in an institution which has changed dramatically over the decades. And I think it's fair to say that most teams now transactionally work in English. And the reality of that means that candidates coming with English as a strong language, a very strong language, particularly if you write well, are going to impress managers. Okay, so it's not an exclusion criteria in any sense. All teams are mixed. No manager wants to have teams with just one set of languages, nationalities, etc., because we work across the 27 member states and more. So the variety is important. But for every job we have, we get a lot more candidates with one nationality than others. And of course, increasingly in these days, we get people with multiple nationalities. So don't be put off. And I say that particularly to the native English speakers. Sometimes the thing that puts them off is their relative weakness in their second language, relative to many of our other colleagues from other parts of Europe. As long as you're able to do those tests, most of us have much more ability to do passive use of our second, third, and fourth languages if we have them than active. As long as you can pass that barrier, some of this will also develop in your career. Multilingualism becomes, I would say, part of the joy of working in the European institutions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Julie. I think that's very helpful as well and encouraging as well. I think that's hopefully the candidates are coming away encouraged from this webinar in general. But thanks very much. There's a few more questions. I'm not sure we're going to have time to go to all of them here, but just on the specifics of this competition, Koen, there's a question around. So there's one question around is there, I think, maybe a risk of candidates with substantial experience being screened out through the testing procedure? And I might add to that with just two more questions there. Just on the written test, is it the substance that's assessed, or is it around the editorial, such as punctuation, typos, etc., that's being assessed? And then one final question again on the competition process is, how does EPSO control for gender bias in selection?
Okay, so first question, are people who are in a way almost over-experienced kind of directed out? No, not at all. So the criteria we mentioned here and that you just saw on the screen, 6 years of experience, 7 years of experience, are the minimum criteria. And we see for almost all competitions that we attract high numbers of people who have more experience than what we ask for. So first of all, there's no age limit. So people can apply in their 40s, even in their 50s. There's no issue in age. Really, the criteria are the minimum criteria. If you meet those, you're eligible. And we don't care, how much more years that you have above the minimum eligibility criteria. You're in, and you're good to go as a candidate. So don't think this is not anything for me anymore because I'm too qualified or I'm too old. No, you're not. We really welcome your application. That's very, very important to know. Your second question was about, the written test. What is mainly looked at? As said, is communication skills. So it's both structure and content and vocabulary used, but of course also you need to be able to draft it in a grammatically and orthographically correct way. If you start writing mistakes, I mean, a mistake is okay, but if you start, really messing up your punctuation and your orthography, that will be held against you in the final marking, of course. So try and make sure that you're, as said by multiple people, Julia, of course, as well said it as well. Communication is key, right? In all we do. So, and definitely this written communication, because we work a lot with, reporting, with communicating towards the outside world, to industry, to research bodies on the websites. So it's essential to be able to be a good communicator, and there both sides play a role. The third question, I just forgot it. Mike, can you remind me?
I think it was around how EPSO manages to control for gender bias in the selection process.
So currently we do not really have a gender bias issue, apart from maybe some roles. For instance, like in IT, we tend to still attract many male candidates, and in some science fields as well. All the rest, actually, we are quite well balanced when it comes to candidates. And we see that more and more also towards, because once you are in, once you are a functionary or an e-official, we have this job mobility scheme. So you can, first of all, go wherever you want, change services, change institution, change city of work even, and also grow, vertically. And we see that more and more, we see that the gender balance in the higher level management positions is getting more and more equal. Right? Maybe not yet at the very top, but we're getting there slowly. So maybe Julia wants to say a word about this. But the gender bias is not really our issue. We have more an issue in terms of geographical balance, which we have mentioned already. And then we try to attract more people from different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, ethnic minorities. So these are topics we work on, but the gender balance as such is not really an issue anymore. Julia, I don't know if you want to compliment.
Thanks. No, I mean, again, it's something that's changed a lot over the years. So I think exactly as Kuhn says, and maybe just one point to add for the specialist competition, um, uh, disaster and civil protection and security do in many of our member states continue to be male dominated. So that obviously is then reflected to some extent in who applies. But then if you look inside the Commission, inside, for example, our emergency response duty system, you will actually see a more balanced gender profile than you would in the average equivalent in a member state. So I'm trying to be a bit diplomatic here, but I think the Commission really at this stage, and I can't speak to the other institutions, is really a bit of a front runner in terms of making sure that the people come with the skills that they have and the experience that they have, and that they get the opportunities to use those once they get in. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Kuhn and Julia. I think that's very positive to hear. I think we have some remaining questions on Slido, but I think we're running short on time, so we might get back to some of you by email if you want to submit your or come back on a general email to some of those questions if we can. I'm going to bring the webinar to a close now. I'd like to just really to say thank you very much to our speakers, to Morris, to Julia, and to Kuhn. We really appreciate you giving your time. It's really fantastic to have such a wealth of knowledge and on this call to share that with the candidates. So really thank you again. I think hopefully all the people who be joining online have taken some encouragement from this and taken a bit more of an understanding of how to approach the competitions, how to get the best out of yourself in terms of each stage of the competition. Again, Department of Foreign Affairs has support and training available for Irish candidates. So if you're applying for these roles or any other roles in the EU institutions or agencies, please do contact us at eujobs@dfa.ie. And if you have any other questions around this competition or others, please again do send us an email there. If you'd like to rewatch some of this webinar or share it with someone, this will be available shortly after we finish. This will be available on DFA's YouTube channel. That's really it from us. Thanks again for joining us. I hope it's been useful, and please do contact us if you have any questions. Thanks again to our speakers. Goodbye.
Thanks a lot, Mike, and good luck, everybody. Bye-bye.